Hello everyone, welcome back to the second video of Civil 3D for Land Surveyors. In this video, we'll be covering how to draft your existing parcel data, how to draft your existing conditions, and how to add survey points to Civil 3D. This video will be split into three parts. For this video, part 2, we'll be covering how to import your collected field survey points and start drafting the existing conditions. Part 2 continues where part 1 left off. Now that we have the existing parcel data done, I want to move on to our next step, which is I want to import our survey points into a DWG so then we can use it to start drawing our existing conditions. So to do this, I'm going to go open up my folder here. I'm going to go back to my base drawing. And I just want to add real quick. I separate everything out into different drawings. I don't like compiling all of my line work, all my survey points, and everything into one DWG, because to me it's a lot of clutter and it's messy and I do not like it. I like to have everything separated out, and then I can do a command which is called X reference, where I can just start layering different drawings on top of each other, and I don't have to deal with all this clutter, and like I can unload and reload things on top of each other. But I'll talk about that later. That's a later topic, but yeah, anyways. So I'm going to import these points. So we go to points, point creation tool. This icon here is for import points. We want to select our green plus mark here. Go to these are CSV files that we're going to be putting into here, which is Excel files, but yeah, you just open up the one you want, click open. And then for the file format, you want to do PNEZD, comma, delimited. So real quick on what that means, if you're curious. So the P stands for point number, the N starts for northing, E starts for easting, the Z is for elevation, and the D is for description, and comma delimited means that each of these values is separated out by a comma. So that's the one you always want to use when importing your points. That guy, which is like the bottom one. You don't need to worry about this menu, this selection, you don't need that. Uncheck this do elevation adjustments if possible. We don't want that. So just unclick that one, click OK. And bam. Here is all of our survey points. So now that we have this done, I want to save this out so it becomes its own DWG. So yet again, you can come up here to this icon. You go to Save As, or just click it, I guess. Anyways, you hit Save As, it'll bring up this menu. I just know the command off my head, so I never go up to this icon anymore, so I just type Save As, click space. It'll pop up this window, and like you've done the same thing. I just remember it off the top of my head, so I just type Save As to save this out as I want it. So I'm going to use this guy and call it Survey Points. Click Save. Cool. So now that's done. So my next step is we're going to start doing the existing conditions now. And yet again, I'm going to do this as a different DWG because I do not want all this information all over the place. First and foremost, I'm going to change the scale on all these labels. So to do this, you go down to your annotation scale here, click it. I'm going to be hopping in and out of this constantly while doing the existing conditions, but we'll just do it as a 1-to-1 for now. It'll make it really, really tiny, but it makes it so we don't have like overlapping text, and it'll be a little bit easier to deal with. But anyways, save that. Let's go back to open our folder here. Open file. I'm going to go back to my base drawing, click open. All right. So this is why I separate them out into different drawings. So if I type xref, which is cross-reference, click space, it'll pop up with this menu here. This will allow me to attach other drawings to other drawings and like basically start creating like a layer system of drawings on top of each other that I can not edit. All I can do is just kind of see them and use them as like references for things. So you go to this, we're going to attach a DWG. And we're going to go all the way to where I have all my stuff located. Alright, here's our survey points. Click open. Alright, it's going to pop up with this menu. So what you want to do is turn this intersection point. Like all the rest of this, don't worry about, other than the reference type and the intersection point. Just click that off. If I specify on screen that it's going to make me choose somewhere out here, and I don't want that to do that. I just want it to come in where it's already set. So uncheck marking this just puts the drawing exactly where I had it originally, and I don't have to like pick where I want it to be. If that makes sense. And then for the reference type, you just want this as an overlay. You don't want to do it as an attachment. Otherwise, it becomes like part of the drawing that you're X-referencing in. And then like it creates like a tangled up web of like things being attached to other things. And you don't want that. It just creates one big problem. So just make sure you have your reference type set to overlay. And you should be okay. So just click OK. All right. It's going to be hard to see, but we got survey points in there. So I set the reference, not the reference, but I set the survey points to 1-to-1, so these guys are really shrunk down, right? But that makes it easier when I start doing my line work. So we got this going on. Now we're going to start doing our existing conditions. Alright, so let's begin drawing up our existing conditions. So with your survey points that you've imported, this is as simple as plain connect the dots. So that's all we need to do. So to start doing this, I think we need to go over the difference between a line and a polyline. So for surveying and just in general, you want to use polylines. So polylines are a connected line that is made up of multiple segments, and it acts as a singular object. This is way better and different when it comes to a line, because a line is a one object and it is one segment, and it has very limited amount of editing that you can do to it. So, for example, let's say I make a line by typing L for line, and I start doing this like this, right? When I select this, see how it only does one line. Compared to a polyline, this guy, if I go like this, it becomes one singular object. One that I can manipulate and move around and do just about whatever I want with it, compared to a line. If I were to move like these endpoints, it moves as its own object, and we don't want that. We just want it as one continuous line that has different points for editing purposes. And also on top of that, your lines, if you look at its properties, which you do by highlighting it, right-clicking, and going to properties here. If you look at this guy, we are not given an elevation on this for the most part. As compared to a polyline, if we were to draw this guy in and we highlight it, we get an elevation. So this becomes super important, especially when we start getting into creating an existing surface. We can just use the lines created on our existing conditions base and copy and paste them into our existing surface and create feature lines, break lines, and so on and so forth with it. So your polyline, super important. There's all sorts of things you can do with it, like you can edit how wide it is by doing your global width here. Like if I did 0.4, that guy, you can make it huge. You can actually edit like its positions and like all sorts of stuff. So like polylines are the way to go. Don't ever use lines. Lines are bad. Unless you're an architect, then you can use it. But outside of that, always use polylines. And like I said, I'm going to be using these polylines for surface reasons for my existing surface. And each one of these survey points has an elevation attached to it. So if we zoom in here and look at this TBC, we can see that it has an elevation of 4,538.49. So when I take this line work, throw it in, and start doing existing surface stuff, it'll create elevations based on where I selected on my survey point here. So, yeah. What I'm trying to get across is polylines really useful, really great. But when it comes to creating an existing surface, this is literally a game of connect the dots. I've only heard rumors of it. I never got this to work or messed with it myself, but there is something in the drafting program in like Carlson or on Civil here where you can make it where it'll like detect like the labels or like the points and like can automatically create lines between every one of these points, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know how that works. So unfortunately, we're going to do the long and tedious method, which is plain connect the dots. So first and foremost, you just got to start somewhere. So for mine, I'm going to start at this TPC here. And we're just going to connect to each one of these. And this takes forever sometimes, but it's whatever. You can just turn your brain off when doing this process. I'm only going to show you a little bit on how to do this, and then we're going to do like a time lapse on this guy. I don't know where the TBC is on that, but anyways. So based off of this guy, we've done our top back of curve. Now I want to like continue out doing the rest of the curve. So you would offset 1/2 foot for your curb face, and depending, I think since this is a standard road, the distance between your curb face and the lip of curve, it's only going to be like 1.5 feet. But let's just test that right now. So to offset this guy, so we don't have to draw another line 1.5 feet, you just type offset, which is OFF, SET. But anyways, specify a distance. We're going to go 0.5 for 1/2 foot. Select our object. Choose the direction, which is that way. And now we're good. So that would be your curb face. And then I have points for LOC, but which is your lip of curve, but for the most part, I'm just going to be offsetting all this. So typically, this should be 1.5 or 2 feet or 1.5 feet. Looks like this dude is a little bit shorter than that. It's about right. But yeah, I think you can see the general gist of what's going on here is the more you play connect dots, you do your offsets, your image starts to form. So one thing I want to discuss, I talked about this earlier, but for your geolocation, you can turn this on and kind of see how things are looking compared to an aerial image. We'll do the Bing aerial. That's what I'm saying. We're like, it's not going to be spot on, so I wouldn't trust it. But you can kind of see what we're going for. We're doing this curb and gutter here. So since this guy curves, right? Let's just turn this map off. I'm going to get rid of these because it'll just make life easier once I get this curvature all figured out. If I want to make this line curve, I can select it. Each one of these is a vertex, and vertex can be removed and stretched. You can add more. What I'm going to do, based on how this curves, I'm going to remove this guy here. Actually, I'm going to remove this one here. Now it just creates a straight point between these two vertexes, but we know that this curves slightly, right? So if you hover over this midpoint, we can convert this to an arc. And now we can just have it snap to the node. And now we can start getting some more uniformed shape into our curves here. If you don't know how to turn your node snap on, it's down here in your snaps options. You just click this down arrow. Here's all the different types of snaps you can do. We're doing node. Node is always applied to points. So keep that guy on. That's what you're going to be using. But yeah, so I'm going to do the same thing here to start smoothing this out some more. I'm going to remove this vertex. Highlight over that. Convert to arc. And there we go. That's starting to look like a curve. Starting to look like curb and gutter. So now we can start offsetting this guy. Half a foot. And offset yet again for 1.5 feet. There we go. And that's how you're going to do your curb and gutter. Ideally, you want all this to be one uniform line. If I highlight over my survey points, you can see that like this goes down a ways. And I'm gonna do a little time lapse on this guy of me drafting in my curve, but I want to make sure this is all one uniform line. So now that I'm talking about that, I'm gonna get rid of that. So like you can join polylines as well, which is also a super useful feature of them. So like let's say if I had this dude here and I had this guy here, I can take this, I can snap it to this node, not node, but this endpoint, and then select this other guy, and if I type join, enter, now they become a uniform line. One big old line here. The only time your join isn't going to work is, for example, let's say I go to this node, and then I come down to this guy here, and I'm like, oh man, I want this all to be one continuous line. I highlight over it, I type join. I'm like, oh wait a minute, what's going on? This isn't joining together. Well, the problem is you're trying to join two lines that are two different elevations, so they're technically not connecting. So to fix this, let's look at what this dude is. This one is 45, 38, 63. Just write that down real quick, sorry. If I take this one, I right click, go to its properties, which will open the property menu here. I can see that it's an elevation of 38.93. I can just change this dude to that 4538.63. Hit enter. Now these two should match on top of each other and be at the same elevation. So now if I grab this, type join. Now it's that should have worked. Oh, it's off by it rounded. Okay. Let's just control copy the elevation from this one. Go over to this guy. Control paste. And now, if we go like this, we have both of these guys selected, so now we can see that the elevation's the same. And now if I type join, it'll make it one uniform line. And bam, it's now one uniform line. So yeah, if you ever have a problem where it doesn't join, just know that like there's most likely a problem with elevations, or you are probably not connecting endpoint to endpoint and it's off by like 1,000th of an inch or something. Like that's normally what it turns out to be, is you're off ever so slightly. Or the elevations are wrong. I want to say once you do a lot of this, you can just straight up make all the elevations and all these guys set to 0 when you join it together. But for right now, we're going to try to make sure everything has an elevation based upon the survey points. So when we hop into making our existing surface, it makes things a little bit easier. But for the most part, you can have all these set to an elevation of 0 if you truly desire. It's just, it's going to make it difficult with a surface when you're trying to connect things to a break line, and the break line is at 0 where everything else is at 4,500 and something feet. So you'll create like big dips and divots. So my advice is make sure these all just have an elevation, even if these are all just the exact same thing of this 3862.7. That's okay. At least you'll start somewhere instead of off into the void and then have to work your way out of the void. But anyways, I'm gonna do a time lapse of me completing all the TBC. So I'll see you in just a moment. So right here, I have a little bit of a problem. What I mean by that is whoever was surveying this just forgot to type it up as TBC. They most likely went to the LOC, then walked back up to the TBC and just clocked it as an LOC and just forgot to change the label. But like once you're looking through this, you can kind of just get an idea. You're like, oh, that was just a mistake on their part. But anyways, I just want to point that out. Here's another one I just encountered. So this call out here is for storm drain catch basin TBC 24 by 48. So this is an inlet or a catch basin or so on and so forth that has like a hooded grate on top of it. There's like a metal piece that sticks up on the top of the TBC. You can straight up ignore this if you truly desire. You don't need to put anything here, but I'm gonna put something here because the fact that the surveyor marked that as TBC means, yeah, he got it right on the back of TBC. Sometimes you can just ignore that, but for this go around, I'm going to snap it to that midpoint to match that survey point. But anyways, We'll keep on going. Okay. Here's another thing just noticed here. So you'll get survey points, and like some of these will only make sense to the people that surveyed it. So like the field guys or whoever, if it was you, if you I guess this is just advice. If you're gonna go out and collect these points and you are having someone draft these up for you, you need to make it as clear as possible of what is what. Otherwise, the people that are drafting this up and trying to figure it out are going to be going, what does this mean? Like, right here, I can see there's a TBC, flow line, EC for edge of concrete, flow line, LOC. So, like, I'm super confused as to what's going on here. I mean, I'm not super confused. I've already drawn this before. I've already done this many times before. But my advice is go to Google Maps, and you can see, like, a street view of what this looks like. We can also do, yet again, we can turn on our geolocation. Let me get this properties menu out of the way. We can go to our geolocation. We can go to our Bing aerial, and we can kind of get an idea of what's happening. So what's going on? Since I've done this before, I know quite a bit of what is going on with this property. This is a like turn lane, or like a drive approach into this property that they did not make. So it's just hanging out here, just chilling out here in the abstract. So what I would do, yet again, we can see this is not super spot on. But yeah, so what's going on? So that guy goes into here, and then this travels onward. Sewer pipe. This travels down to here. To this. To this. And then, anyways, it just keeps going along the road. But, like, can you see how this could be kind of confusing with the survey points that are gathered? There's just, you're going along, if you're just thinking, you're like, oh, I'm going along a road, and now it veers off one way like that. It's like, what is going on here? And then when you look at an image, you're like, oh, these are drive approaches and or like turnoffs onto these property that were made and just weren't finished because nothing was made on the property quite yet. So like this would be like a driveway would go into here. Same for like this guy to the east here. It's like, oh, a driveway into a parking lot. But yeah, that's something you'll have to explain to a drafter at some point. So don't don't get mad if some dude who's drafting this goes like, hey man, what's going on? Because it's kind of confusing at first. But yeah, we'll just keep on trucking from here. So a problem you might have, depending on your computer and like what additional windows you have open up with Civil, it can cause quite a bit of bog down and slowing. So my advice is make sure you have your properties and X reference and whatever additional window closed in Civil, and like it should speed it up a bit. This geolocation also takes up, a processing power just to keep this background image going on. So you can just turn this off. I think for right now I'm gonna keep mine on, but yeah, if you feel slow, it's because your computer's trying to run a bunch of things at once. Alright, from here, you can see that I've kind of gone a little above and beyond. For this project, we did stuff through here, and also we had stuff going on with this property that's the south of our main guy that we were doing as well. So we have survey points going down like basically this whole road. But this is a good stopping point. I would only do existing conditions that pertain to your parcel. So if you're ever lost on where your parcel is, this is where your X reference comes in handy. So type xref. We're going to attach a DWG. There's different ways, things you can attach as an X reference, by the way. So if you hit this down arrow, you can see that you can do DWG, image, DWF, PDF, point cloud. Like, there's a few options here. The only ones I ever deal with are DWG and a image and a PDF. But anyways, we're going to attach a DWG. We're going to do our existing parcel data. Click open. Alright, click OK. Alright. So from this, you can see our parcel of land. Let's turn this geolocation off real quick. So our parcel of land only goes to here. So what I would do, I went a little too far. I would just break. Let's get rid of this. Let's toss this guy. That's all the line work I want going down this way, because I don't care what's happening down here. I only care what is going to be close to and dealing with our property. But yeah, this another thing. This is what I mean by an X reference. Like, this allows me to create, it's almost like a block in a way, where this is just one uniformed object that we can display it in the front or display it in the back, and like it just gives us a reference point or something to look at, compared to if this was all in one drawing. We would have all the layers, all the line work, and then we'd have to like sift through and be like, and if I wanted to get rid of this, if I didn't want to see this anymore, I'd have to like freeze it, which the freeze command just allows you to essentially turn off that layer for a moment, and then you can unfreeze it to have that layer come back up. But for X references, this is what's great about it, is you can just click on it, right click, you can click unload, and bam, it disappears. But with the X reference menu open here, you can see how there's this red icon. That means it's unloaded. So if we just right click on it and reload, it'll just pop back in, and we don't have to go through this whole song and dance of freezing it, unfreezing it. And the reason why freezing and unfreezing creates problems, it just kind of becomes a tangled web. So let's say you freeze it and you save the drawing, you go and do, forget about the project, or you come back to it later, and you're like, man, why isn't this layer working, and why won't this turn on, why can't I see it? And then you're like, oh wait, I froze it. So when you freeze it, you're freezing one particular layer in general, and it will not display until it is unfrozen. So it kind of becomes this problem where you're like, if you were like drawing on the same layer, you'd be like, I don't know why this isn't working, why this isn't displaying. So that's why it's just better to just do the X references, because then you can just unload it and bring it back in, and you don't have to be so confused on why it's not working. And like the only way to fix that is you have to go back into your layer properties menu and have to go find that particular layer and like check it off to unfreeze it, and it just becomes a huge hassle. So X references is so much better, so much easier. You just unload the thing, and then you go, oh man, I need to see this again, and reload it back in. That's my little spiel on that. X references are super nice. But anyways, so I've done this TBC up to this point. You can see how I have this segmented, right? And like I can make this all join together by the same method I told you about earlier, which is I just got to make sure these are all matching the same elevations. Which, yet again, just a little reminder on how that works. You click it, you right click, you go to Properties. Properties menu will display here. The elevation for this is 38.93, and then the elevation for this guy, oh, it's not going to pop up. Here, one sec. You have to have the one object selected to see its elevation. You can't select two of them, otherwise it's going to tell you. I'll show you right here, actually. If you have them both selected like this, it'll say it varies because it only loads one of them. And these are two different elevations. If they're the same, they'll just say the one elevation. But right now it says varies because you're looking at two objects, but these two objects have two different elevations. But anyways. So we can do what I said before, where we can match it all to the same elevation of this guy, or vice versa. We can make this dude match the elevation of what we have selected now. Or we can all just put it to 0, but putting it to 0 and then using this later will become a problem. It just creates more work and it's more effort. So for right now, I would just put these all... Let's just put these all to this elevation. Why not? It'll be fine. Put this all to this. Then the elevation's here. V. And then type join. Now we should have one uniform line. That's all the time I have for part 2, so I'll see all of you in part 3.